Hello and welcome to Friday Night Arcade. My name is Aaron, and this week we're taking a look at Tribute Games' modern-day love letter to fans of old-school arcade beat-em-ups, as well as those heroes on a half-shell, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have fond memories of the cartoon series from the 80s, as well as the first two live-action movies, and of course the video games that went along with it. Most people will say that Turtles in Time is their favorite Turtles game, and they wouldn't be out of line with that opinion, but I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Turtles 2 and Turtles 3 on the NES. Turtles 2 was a big deal at the time because it was called Turtles 2 the arcade game, and it was an actual arcade game that was brought to you on a home console. I still remember reading about it in Nintendo Power and just being blown away by all of those screenshots with all the detail and the levels and stuff like the flames shooting up from the bottom of the screen. It was just so cool looking. Also, I didn't get a Super Nintendo until a little later in the console's lifespan, so instead of buying Turtles in Time along with everyone else, I ended up buying Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project, for the NES. I always loved this game. It's just an incredibly polished NES beat-em-up. It doesn't reinvent the wheel or anything like that, but what it does very well with excellent controls, a stellar soundtrack, and even some cool cutscenes to tie the whole story together. In fact, I always thought it was a little bit odd that in Turtles 3, Shredder steals the entire city of Manhattan, whereas in Turtles in Time, he just steals the Statue of Liberty. Okay? Anyway, fast forward almost 3 decades, and now we've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. And this is pretty much everything you could want in a new Turtles game. It's got all of the look and feel of the old-school beat-em-up arcade and 16-bit Turtles games, everything right down to the art design and animations, all look like they're right out of a mid-90s arcade game. And even the opening cutscene is done in the style of the old 80s cartoon, which is a really nice touch. But the game also has lots of quality-of-life improvements over its predecessors, such as the ability to pick up where you left off if you need to take a break, and there's plenty of challenges and achievements to go after, which adds to the replay value. They also added online play, which is super cool since this game really was meant to be played with more than one player. It was a fairly seamless process just jumping into a random online party, and I don't think I could have gotten through some of the later stages of this game alone. The only drawback is when someone just randomly leaves the party and, hello? Hello? Hello, sir, hello? The controls are what you would expect from a beat-em-up, but I feel like the skills and special attacks are a bit more varied now than they were in the older games, and there's reasons to play as other people besides Donatello or Leonardo now. You can also play as Splinter and April O'Neil, and Casey Jones is an unlockable character. There's the basic stuff like punch and kick, and you can do a lot of damage just racking up hit streaks. April O'Neil is a particularly tough character with her speed. You can easily rack up significant hit streaks against some of the big slow rock monsters later in the game. But also, each character has their own special ninja ability. Once you build up enough power on your ninja meter, you can activate your special skill to just go crazy, dealing out all sorts of damage. This is especially just insane when you have several players all dealing out ninja power at once. There's so much stuff going on at the same time on the screen, it can be almost overwhelming, but in a good and cool, fun way. That's one thing that almost feels off about these modern retro games for me, though, is that everything almost feels too slick and polished, and I keep halfway expecting some of that classic SNES slowdown to creep in. Some of the animations are almost too smooth as well. This isn't a complaint at all, it's just an observation, and it kind of takes a minute for me to get used to. Everything just looks a little too good. I don't know, maybe they could put in an option for scan lines or something so at least it looks like you're playing on an old CRT. Again, that's not a complaint, it's just different. Speaking of CRTs, the levels are full of all sorts of hilarious and nonsensical gags and references, like these foot soldiers that literally just start hucking old televisions at you. And there's these giant, awesome wood-grain, zenith-looking CRT televisions in the background. Like these foot soldiers that just work in the food court at the mall. Sure, why not? There's a wide variety of levels that call back to the older games, all stuff you would expect in a Turtles game, such as the sewers, a prehistoric level, cityscapes, and of course stuff like the Technodrome. But then, like I said, there's just randomly a zoo level. There's a level where the foot soldiers are taking over Channel 6 News, and there's also levels where you're riding around on jet-powered skateboards, just like in the older games. There's also quite a few levels, 16 in total. You can move around between levels on an overworld screen and replay levels if you want, which is nice, especially since there's special items you can find along the way, along with the achievements like I mentioned before. So it's nice to have the option to go back and replay a level that you've already beaten. There's side characters that you run into along the way, and they each ask you to look for stuff that they're missing, like a certain number of VHS tapes or whatever. And of course, no Turtles game would be complete without boss fights. Shredder's Revenge has all of the boss fights you could possibly want in a Turtles game, like Baxter Stockman, Rocksteady, and Bebop, including some characters that I wasn't expecting or had kind of forgotten that they even existed, like Leatherhead or the Rat King. And of course, the Shredder fights are ridiculously hard, but that's to be expected. A lot of these fights also have little nods to their counterparts from earlier games, but with just enough new moves and patterns thrown in to keep it challenging for both old and new players of the series. As far as the music goes, most of it is pretty dang good. The instrumentals were done by T. Lopez, who also did Sonic Mania and Streets of Rage 4, and these tracks all bring back that heavy blitz-paced arcade feel. And they also brought back the cast of the original 80s cartoon to reprise their roles as the Turtles, and everybody's got a few one-liners thrown in there for good measure. Now, I'm not sure if it was the way the game was mixed or if it was the crappy speakers on my TV, but I had a hard time understanding a lot of what the Turtles were saying throughout the game. Maybe your experience will be different, I don't know, but it was fine. Overall, this game is just ridiculously, awesomely, stupid good fun, and without the limitations of a mid-90s game cartridge space, they were able to pack quite a few levels in, like I said before, and it took me a good 2 hours or so to get through the entire game in one sitting. I feel like I need to go back and play the game again though, because I still feel like there's just a lot to learn about the combat system, and I want to try out all of the characters. Fans of the Ninja Turtles, as well as fans of old-school arcade beat-em-ups, will be plenty satisfied with Shredder's Revenge, and considering you can get it for under $25 right now, I'd say it's a no-brainer. This really does feel like a love letter to fans of the original games, but with just enough new stuff thrown in to make it feel like a fresh experience. Tribute Games spent about a decade pitching this game to try to get it made, and they handled the property with great care once they finally got the green light. And I feel like this is worth mentioning, but I was not given a review copy of this game, and this video is not in any way sponsored by Tribute Games. I bought the game with my own money and just played it, and well, it's just a dang good game. Anyway, that's all for this week. What about you? Did you have a chance to play this one yet? I'd love to hear about your experience with this or any of the other Turtles games in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.